Black excellence is breaking the glass ceiling. Don't be afraid to reach outside the box.
Welcome to the Dripping in Black podcast, where we celebrate Black excellence throughout the Black diaspora. Here's your host, David V. Lewis.
What's up, good people all across the world? This is the Dripping in Black podcast. I am your host, David V. Lewis. And per usual, we have another fantastic guest. Today's guest is Khalilah Smith. Khalilah, say hello to the world.
How's it going?
So excited for our audience. We have a great story in store for you all today. Miss Khalilah Smith. I don't even want to tip my hand about it. I just been reading about it, and so I'm excited, as the audience should be, about hearing your story. It's dope. I'll say that to lead in, but we'll get into that shortly. We always start off our podcast with a very simple but loaded question of who is our guest. So who is Khalilah Smith?
A lot of people take me as kind, caring, just in the city, Detroit, grown, born and raised type of girl. I do like to walk around barefoot, so we do have that one. But just city girl with country ways, pretty much. That's who I am, in and out.
City girl with country ways. So whenever we do this podcast and we have somebody from Detroit, I have to ask, what side of Detroit did you come up on?
Born and raised on the west side.
Oh, sorry about that. East side all day. We won't hold that against you. We still have some dynamic people who come from the west side. We do. All right. And so you had quite a career in terms of your schooling. I would be remiss to not mention your college. S Squared has to love that, the college that you attend. So tell the world the college you attended and give us a little background about your college experience.
All right. So I attended Michigan State University, graduated class of 2021 with the animal science degree. And honestly, Michigan State was some of the best times, some of the lowest times in my life. But honestly, I came out with the best opportunities that anybody could ever have coming out of college. So I took away some things and I left some things behind, but I took one major thing off the table, which was rodeo coming out of Michigan State.
Yeah, rodeo. All right. And so that's where we're going to head with this. So tell us, what got you into rodeo?
All right. So back in the day when I was a kid, I was the heathen of the family. We're just gonna say that. So I had a little bit of trouble growing up, and finally came out that I was diagnosed with ADHD. So my mom tried to figure out any and everything to get me to get rid of that energy and keep me focused in class. So I've gone through snowmobiling, basketball playing. I ran around with my brother's football team, and nothing worked. So she took the love that I had for animals and the love that I needed to get out just and mesh them together. So we ended up going into horses. So immediately after spending time cleaning horse stalls, riding horses, just brushing them and getting that connection and bond, I kind of clicked. And she seen that taking me off the medication and bonding me with the horses led me to getting A's and going through school and actually being attentive in school. So that's pretty much where my horse loving passion came from. And then my need for speed came out, and we quickly found out that I wanted to go about 40 to 50 miles an hour on a horseback. We just love doing that. So that's pretty much where rodeo came for me. I was introduced to my trainer, Keith Morale, by way of how we meet up, and everybody's born and raised in Detroit. He was born and raised in Detroit. He rode for over 30 years with him and his family. They rodeoed, and he pretty much took me under his wing. And that's where it all started. And I stuck with it ever since high school. I went to Michigan State doing it. one of the only Black people walking around the club, but it didn't stop me from pursuing something I love.
Yeah. Oh, that's so much awesomeness there. So shout out to mom. What age were you when mom
Um,
turned you on to the horses?
9 to 10, I believe. So I think I
Hmm.
was nine, just turned coming into 10.
Okay. Wow. What schools did you attend in Detroit?
Oh, geez. I didn't attend any Detroit public schools. My mom gave up
Okay.
on that ambition when my brother was a kid. So I went to a
Mm,
bunch of out of city schools. So still not
mm,
better. I went to Redford for elementary
okay.
school, and then no longer are they a thing. I went to Inkster public schools for a while.
Oh,
Yeah, she
wait a
thought
minute.
Inkster was a little bit better than Detroit at the time.
No, I taught there. When did you
Okay,
go there?
I went to Baylor Woodson. Geez, my brother graduated in '08, so I was in Baylor Woodson from 2006, 7, and then I went
Hmm.
to Blanchette along those
Hmm.
lines once he graduated. So '08, '09,
Okay. Did you ever
I
go
was
to
in
the
Inkster for
high?
a while. No, no.
Oh, okay.
They,
Yeah, I
my
remember
mom,
all
my
my
mom,
Inkster babies. So, did
my
your brother
mom
go to the
pulled
high
me.
school?
Yeah, yep.
Who was the brother?
Marvin Smith played football with
Okay.
Grady Ward.
What year did he come out? He might have been before me.
'08.
Okay. I think I had just arrived in '07, so don't remember him. Some of
Yeah.
my colleagues may remember him as well. And, Sean, my producer, also taught at Inkster High School. That's kind
Okay.
of wild. I don't know if you knew that before we got on.
Mm-mm.
Okay. So Inkster public schools in terms of the middle school, and then off to where?
Where did I go after Inkster? I believe I went to Melvindale after Inkster. So I stayed in
Mm,
Melvindale for about 3, 4 years out there. So
mm.
didn't quite get along with people after they figured out I rode horses. It quite the meshing, wasn't quite the meshing crowd to be around. So my mom pulled me from
I
Melvindale,
can.
and we ended up going to Belleville. So I graduated from Belleville High. And that was more of a pace that I needed to be around people that
Mhm,
actually had the same experiences and the same family culture as I did, as far as the farm work and the farm life. So
mhm.
a little bit better of a scene for me. So
Man, your story is wild to me. I mean, you grew up on the west side of Detroit, which is really a city,
hmm
and your mom is doing things to try to find something that you're into, right? To channel your energy in a positive way. And she finds horsing, which is really a rural
yeah.
thing. And you kind of bounce around with that. When you were in high school, were you thinking college?
No, actually.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
wasn't the academic kid. I was more of the you get what you get type kid.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I became more of the academic kid maybe sophomore year, but at that time I
mhm.
had mom ended up pulling me from Melvindale, so I became
Mhm.
that you get what you get again kid. But
Okay. Wow.
senior year, I believe, my trainer and my mom got together and said, "You're going somewhere. I don't care where you go,
Mhm.
but you're getting out of here," type thing.
Mhm.
So that's when I decided Michigan State came to Belleville for application day. And at that
Mhm.
time, they did application day. And if you submitted your application and didn't get accepted, you could do an interview on site. Their extension people came down and do interview on site. So I didn't get accepted by grades. So when he called me into the office, he said, "What happened here?" Because at that time, grades had dropped, and then towards senior year, that's when it rose again. But I was kind of like, you know, at that time, it was just
Mhm.
a balancing act between just
Mhm.
life and school, trying to figure out who I am and trying to get
Yeah.
along with kids who necessarily didn't see the same, I would say, the same levels as I did as far as how I enjoyed being outdoors compared to how Melvindale kids kind of was in the streets and they're doing
Mhm.
everything else that just didn't align with what I love to do. So
Mm.
he understood that when it was going right into it.
Yeah. Oh man, so many questions are popping up in my head. So I just can imagine the challenges that you are experiencing as a young Black female. You got your Black friends that don't get it. Then what kind of challenges, if any, did you face with a predominantly white field, and you're the one Black person there attempting to do what's typically done by white people?
So I didn't face as much prejudice or anything coming into Belleville because Belleville is pretty much a mixed community. If you ever go
Mm,
into Belleville High or any of Belleville schools, they're pretty diverse and majority Black, honestly,
mm.
if you take a look
Okay.
at it. But I did run into a few issues where back in Melvindale, where it was majority white, or they were Arab American, Mexican American, different pots of different places, and it's just like,
Mm.
what are you doing with the horse? Like, why do you have a horse? Like, and then before I even told them that I had a horse, they would never have known. I wore my boots to school every day, but as soon as I told them I had a
Mm.
horse, they started paying attention to me wearing my boots to school. They're like, "You stink. You smell like horse." I'm like, "You never would have
Uh,
known 5 days ago that I would."
mm.
So
Yeah, I didn't
it
stink
became,
5 days ago.
yeah, it became a little bit of a bullying aspect when it came to me
Wow.
riding horses. So
Mm.
at that point, once I got to high school, I was pretty much the kid. I didn't need designer clothes. They were walking around with $1,200 pants, shoes, hats, backpacks. I'm like, I don't care. I'm walking around with my brother's hoodie that has a hole in it from 3 years ago, some pants that might have a hole in it from me riding my horse, and my cowboy boots. And that was enough for
Mm.
me, pretty much. So I didn't get the racial bullying. I pretty much got the you're Black and you have a horse. Like, what do you think you're doing type bullying.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much how I ended out high school, is with that type of relationship with my horse. Like, just trying to
Mm.
get people that look like me to understand where I come from was the biggest thing that I tried to graduate with.
Yeah. It's coming though. It's an awesome story. I can't wait for people to hear your story. It's going to impact so many people, and this is really just the beginning of the telling of it, from Dripping in Black. But so you get into horses at a young age. You start going and working with those horses from middle school on through to high school. When do you feel like, because the audience don't know yet, but you're pretty good. When do you know you're good?
I actually don't. Honestly,
Mm,
that's the hardest thing about me, is I'm really hard on myself, and that's the conversation I just
mm,
had maybe yesterday with a friend here. Honestly, I went into a crash course, as my trainer would say, because he was trying to
mm,
nail so much information into me at
mm,
one moment to be competitive, to be, because his kids were all
mm,
graduating out of the competition life for that age group.
mm,
So he wanted me to be as competitive as I can be. And I've broken down a few times. Like, I can honestly say it was hard because
mm,
it was so much that so many other people have grown up doing that he was trying to push within 2 years onto me.
mm,
And he wasn't
mm,
doing it maliciously or anything. He just wanted
mm,
to see me succeed. So
mm,
it's still a point now where I'm like, you never stop learning.
mm. Oh,
I honestly, you never, like, the saying in the Western world is, if you have a trainer and they don't have a trainer for their trainer, you need to find a new trainer, because at the end of the day,
mm,
that trainer, if he doesn't have a trainer for himself and his trainer doesn't have a trainer, they don't want to
mm,
learn. They're done
mm,
learning, and there's always
mm.
something that can be learned.
So is there a feeling of, so you said you almost broke down. Is there a feeling of feeling like overwhelmed by all the information? What's at the core of this pressure you're feeling?
Yeah, so I when I had my breakdowns, it's pretty much of, why didn't I grow up knowing these things? Why didn't I grow
Mm,
up being able to go to the state fairs? I've only been the Detroit State Fair, the Michigan State Fair that was down on what is it?
State Fair.
State Fair Street,
Yeah.
right on Woodward. I've
Yeah,
only
State
been
Fair in
there one
Woodward.
time, and the next year it
Okay.
closed. And it
Okay.
was like I don't have I never had the opportunities of doing the 4-H and the FFA and showing cattle and horses like most kids do that grow up in the country. They took
Mm-hmm.
that away at a young age. They took that away, and Detroit no longer has that. So you have kids
Mm-hmm.
that no longer are able to see those aspects of life and say, hey, I might want to do this when I get older. So
Yeah.
I didn't, so meeting with all these kids and all these groups of people that are like, hey, I grew up showing horses, I grew up rodeo, and I grew up just in that way of life. It's like me trying to push myself there, but I know I can't because they have the head start that I'm trying to catch up to. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where most of the breakdowns come from, because it's like I know I can't be at the same level as them, as quick as them, because they had it all their life. So I'm trying to make sure I can get there, as well as
Mm-hmm.
making sure other kids below me are also getting there, because what is Detroit showing them besides
Mm-hmm.
go to
Yeah.
school, go to work, and then maybe go to basketball,
Yeah.
football if you're lucky.
Yeah.
So
I would
it's
say for us, the culture, our culture is at a point where we gotta build that within our culture. There's more to life than what we've been exposed to. So kind of opening up our kids to all these. That's one of the greatest things as a teacher that I want to be able to do with my students, is to expose them to the multiple things that are out there. And there's something out there for each and every one of us to find our niche. And so if our kids could just get exposed to those things and not feel like that they have to, limit themselves to what they've seen around them, right? It's kind of typically what we do. If my mom or my aunt is a nurse, then I typically become a nurse or a police officer, or those things. And there's other things out there that may be in alignment with what that kid really likes to do, right?
and that's the thing. I never knew I would have loved liked to ride horses until my mom put the two
Mm,
things together. I would have never
yeah,
been in this world. I would have never met the people I've met along the lines if those
yeah,
two puzzle pieces hadn't been put together.
yeah. And, I'm a history teacher. It's an awesome thing to think about how one decision changes so much, right, in our lives and in the course of history. All right, but let's get to because you're Sean might call you being humble. I think it's a certain level of authenticity there. But I want you to brag a little bit, because you have accomplished quite a bit, even with the late start, that you had. So let's talk about some of your accomplishments, beginning with MSU, Michigan State.
Right. So coming into Michigan State, I didn't know what I was gonna do, honestly. I went in blindsided, and
Mm-hmm.
what the one thing I did know what was I wanted to join the rodeo team. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was going to be a part of rodeo no matter what. So I joined the rodeo club, sat there for a few meetings, and then the rodeo coach elbowed me and said, we're gonna put you in the rodeo queen competition."
Mm-hmm.
So looking at her, I'm shy, don't talk to anybody. I'm like, yeah, right. My mom even looked at her phone twice and sideways when I told her, hey, we're gonna run for a rodeo queen competition. She's like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. So I ended up running the first year. I didn't win. Like I said, I was not the outgoing kid. I
Mm-hmm.
barely wanted to talk to you if you were in my
Mm-hmm.
circle.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a little bit of a rough one, but it drove me. It kind of lit a fire under the kindle that I didn't know I had.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up going for the second year, and I ended up becoming Michigan State 2018 Miss Rodeo Michigan State, and it was nice. But then
Mm-hmm.
it set in. Someone tapped me on the shoulder. It's like, you're the first person of color to hold this title,
Wow.
and it was like, oh, so that's when newspapers and everything. I had
Mm-hmm.
about 20 interviews one day, and they were like,
Mm-hmm.
the first Black Miss Michigan State Rodeo Queen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it dawned on me that why hadn't that been done?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's what took into key with me. And then I looked around, and when I talked to my peers when I had my crown, I got to talk to Michigan State pulled me from every way. And I got
Mm.
to talk to a lot of extension kids. I talked to the incoming class of 2018 freshmen prospects. And I'm like, hey, why don't you guys step into fields that are not really populated with people of color, African Americans? They like,
Mm.
because we don't see ourselves there.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's where I took my rodeo queen title, and I'm like, I got you.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, I'm gonna step on this podium and I'm gonna be the punching bag, whatever. If
Mm.
you don't want to be in the spotlight, I'll take that first thing, and so you can come along and be like, hey, I seen someone
Yeah.
do it. I can do it as well.
Yeah.
And
Having just met you today, I feel like you were kind of built for it just by the way you're telling your story, because you really didn't have a group to fit in, right? You had no place to fit in, and you had to be comfortable with that. And so I think that that provides you with what you need to go into a role where there is no representation, right? The other people you talk to, they're looking for somebody to emulate themselves after. But a person that steps into the role that you did, where there's no representation, has to be comfortable with not having a group per se that they fit in, right? What do you
exactly.
think about that?
That's exactly right. Because
Mm-hmm.
even though I was in the rodeo club, I rarely hung out with the people in rodeo club. Like if
Yeah.
we want to be all honest, like I didn't the kind of stories they can tell, the jokes that they can crack, I didn't fit in the lines of those. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't fit in the lines of the lifestyles. It just it didn't mesh together
Yeah.
well when I was around them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like I was there. I tried to
Mm-hmm.
get other people from Michigan State to join, but it's just like they felt that same push to where it was like they were just there. Like people would
Mm-hmm.
talk to you and everything. People are really friendly, but it's just like in your heart, like you're like two things that don't go together like magnets. They
Mm-hmm.
just start repelling. So it's just like we have
Mm-hmm.
rodeo in common, but other than that, it was hey
Yeah.
here, hey there, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah. Talk to me. So I know very little about rodeo. What's rodeo?
All right, so rodeo is a sport in the agricultural way of life. They call it the Western way of life. It's basically a bunch of events that have been put together from many different aspects of ranch life, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So in rodeo, depending on what organization you're running with, you can have up to maybe 8 or 9 events, and that includes their typical bull riding, bronc riding. You have ladies barrel racing. You have tie down, calf roping, which is it's on the side of the arena where the cowboy has to rope a calf, get down and tie him, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty much like doctoring a calf on the ranch. That's how most people doctor calves on the ranch. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have team roping, which is another way of doctoring calves on the ranch. And then you have steer wrestling, which, if you did not know, steer wrestling was created by a black man. I mean, yeah,
You're gonna have me digging up stuff. I'm a history teacher, but I'm always learning and I'm always excited about Black history as well. Do you know his
yeah.
name?
Bill Pickett.
Okay. Oh, I might have heard that one before. Okay.
Yep. So he started the steer wrestling as a way of, because he couldn't catch this one cow, so he started a way of just biting the cow on his upper lip, flipping him, and that's how he was able to doctor on that calf. So they turned it into steer wrestling, is which we have today on
Wow.
rodeo. So
Wow. We're always at the forefront of these things. You know, our history just is not shared as it should be, but that's
hmm
an aside. All right. So you're at the rodeo. What are you doing?
so depending on which end I am on, as a rodeo queen, I'm the ambassador of rodeo. So I'm pretty much the face that comes and talks to
Mm-hmm.
the spectators. and say, hey, if you don't understand something, talk to me. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
pretty much a walking encyclopedia when it comes to rodeo. So it's like, hey, if you
Okay.
want to know something, ask me. If you want to know
Mm-hmm.
why a certain event is going a certain way, or why a ref
Mm-hmm.
called a flag, or why the cowboy had to do a no time, just talk. Like it's me connecting with the stands and making sure that they're comfortable with what's going on. And then
Mm-hmm.
also on the other end, when I'm carrying flags, I'm promoting sponsors. I'm making sure that their business gets out in front of people, making sure that, their flag goes around the arena. Even if I'm sitting in the arena, I'm helping stock contractors make sure the show goes on, pushing the cattle out of the arena. And then if
Mm-hmm.
I'm outside of a rodeo in general, no rodeo, I'm doing community events, going out and
Mm-hmm.
volunteering, hanging out with kids, just being the community face to merge the two together. And then
Yeah.
not in crown and banner, I barrel race and I'm starting to learn how to rope. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my two sides of the arena right there.
Okay. So the queen side, you have this little shy kid from West Side Detroit out here promoting and answering questions to the masses.
Oh, I'm not shy
That's just
anymore.
so.
They broke me out of that one.
Oh, okay. No, so you broke out of your shyness.
Yeah, they broke
Okay,
me out of
yeah.
that
I
one
was gonna say that's
quickly.
an interesting duality to have, to be kind of, because like they say, like Beyonce is really a shy person, but then of
Hmm.
course she's Beyonce, right? So that's kind of
Yeah.
what the vision I was having. All right, so the queen thing you get now, the
Yeah,
shyness is gone.
yeah.
The thing you said you do on the other side, did you say barreling?
I do barrel racing. Yes.
What's that?
So barrel racing is a cloverleaf pattern, and basically the fastest time wins. So you run
Mm-hmm.
around three barrels as fast as you can without
Mm-hmm.
tipping one. When you tip one, it's a 5 second penalty. So
Mm-hmm.
you leave them all standing, get out the arena as fast as you can, and the fastest time wins. So you're going about 40, 50 miles an hour around these cans, doing sharp turns
Mm-hmm.
at that.
Wow. Right. All right. So that involves, what skills does that, if I'm somebody that's desirous of getting into that, what skills do I need to have?
No fear.
No fear. That's it.
If you anybody can do barrel racing as long as you don't fear to fall, because you're gonna fall a few times, especially
Mm-hmm.
you never ridden something, unless maybe a motorcycle, but you've never ridden something that's between your legs that you have to trust to
Mm-hmm.
get you and him home safe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the partner bonding. So if you have fear, horses can feel that anxiety. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
scared, he's scared.
Mm-hmm.
Something's bad gonna happen in the arena.
Yeah.
So as
Yeah.
long as you have that partnership with your horse and you're calm, you can practice all you want to. You're gonna get
Mm-hmm.
it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people all the time, just if you want to get into barrel racing, leave the fear at the front door. Honestly, just come in
Mm-hmm.
with open mind.
Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome. Tell us about what you're doing. What titles you hold now?
All right. So as of October, I am the 2023 Miss Rodeo Michigan Lady in Waiting.
Mm. And the 2023 Miss Rodeo Michigan Lady in Waiting is means what? Break it down to
So,
us.
mhm. So
Mm-hmm.
during Queens competitions, you have your, I wouldn't say lower levels, but you have your county levels, you have your city levels. Sometimes a lot of cities can have a different, you have rodeo levels, and then you have your professional level, which is state for PRCA, which is Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. And all the state level queens, you can only run one time. And
Mm-hmm.
you carry your queen title for that state for a whole year. And then at the end of the year, you go run for Miss Rodeo America, who is pretty much the first lady of the sport of rodeo, professional rodeo.
Okay. Okay.
So I am Miss Rodeo Michigan. That means I represent Michigan in the sport of rodeo the entire year of the
Mm-hmm.
2023 year. And
Mm-hmm.
then again in December in Vegas on the national stage for Miss Rodeo America. So that entire year, I'm going around promoting my sponsors, promoting the sport of rodeo, and my platform of just mentoring,
Mm-hmm.
making sure kids are able to do the same things that I do. That's my
Yeah.
entire goal is just doing that as a state queen. You get volunteerism going around. You get to help your sponsors make sure their business gets out there, and then you get to go visit your other sister queens. So I can go to different states. Like just this past weekend, I met the girl for Idaho that will be my SAS sister for the 2023 year. So she'll be riding
Mm-hmm.
from state to state along with me and a few other girls from different states, getting to tour the country for a whole year, go on different rodeos. The first thing I get to do in January is go to Denver and go skiing as a rodeo queen, the cowboy
Wow.
downhill. I get to go skiing in a cowboy hat and chaps and hoping I don't fall and split my pants pretty much. But it's
Yeah.
it's it's nice.
What how many places has rodeo taken you, like statewise?
I've been from Michigan all the way down to El Paso, Texas, and then a little bit east of there, New Mexico, Nevada, and then this is my first time on pretty much East Coast as far as I am for Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
So in that
Yeah.
little loop, that's where I've been. So hoping next year I can
Yeah.
spread off, and I'm not going to California. Where
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different story, but
Mm-hmm. So we're actually filming you from Idaho. What part of Idaho?
Not Boise, Shoshone.
Okay. All
So
right.
Boise
Awesome.
area.
Awesome stuff. My few more questions. Um, what's next? So you're getting these titles, you're having much success. You had one year where you ran and you didn't win, but ever since then you've been killing the game. What's next?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm in that kind of phase of life to where it's like, do I want to go to vet school or do I want to travel the world? Because I
Mm-hmm.
know I do. At the end of it all, I've been talking about being a stock contractor. So a stock
Mm-hmm.
contractor is someone who brings the livestock, the cows, the bulls, everything to the rodeos and provide for the
Mm-hmm.
rodeos to go on.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been talking about doing that because it's something that I'm really passionate about. As far as
Mm-hmm.
rodeo goes on, it keeps me involved in rodeo and it keeps
Mm-hmm.
me involved in traveling the world. So that's one of the many aspects that I've been looking into gearing my life towards.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in your bio, you also talked about the importance of educating the minority populated cities,
Yep.
and diversifying education as well. So I think that's part of your vision in the
Mhm.
future as well, just on a broader scale, doing that along with whatever
Yep.
you do professionally.
Yep. That's always going to be a passion of mine, no matter where I go. It's somebody that I can tell about a story or say, hey, if you want to get into rodeo, do it. You want to go be a agriculturalist. You want to go be a scientist. Hey, if I can talk to your parents into talking you into doing something, like just let your kid explore.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I find you so interesting. I'm rooting for you. I'm going to be following you and seeing what happens next. The sky's the limit, I feel. And I've asked all the easy questions. Now I must get to the most difficult question that we ask each and every one of our guests to kind of close out the episode. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
No fear.
No.
Okay. Have you ever been on the cover of a magazine?
No,
Mm.
I have
Have
not.
you
I've been
ever
in
had a
quite a few.
desire? You've been what?
I've been in a few, but never on the cover.
Okay. The ones that you've been in, have they been rodeo related?
Yes, most of all of
Mm.
them, and then the only one was Black Detroit Magazine.
Okay. Do you have a desire to grace the cover of a magazine?
I do. That's one of the goals for next year.
Hmm. Okay, well, I think you beat next year. One of the things that we do for each and every one of our guests is we place them on our magazine cover, the Dripping in Black magazine cover.
Oh,
And so
nice.
we have your cover for you. My executive producer S Squared, Sean Smith, is going to show you yours.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really
All
awesome.
right. So that is your first magazine cover. I don't care what happens next. Dripping in Black is always the first cover that you've ever been on. That is also a parting gift that we're going to send out to you at a not too
Nice.
long distance date, as a thank you for coming out and sharing your story with us.
Nice. That's amazing. Thank you.
All right. Any shout outs you want to give before we close out?
Yeah, quite a few. I want to thank all pretty much you for inviting me on this podcast. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my platforms, to share with people what I do, honestly. Um, great, great thing,
Yeah.
honestly. Shout out to Miss Rodeo Michigan Association for allowing me to represent them for the next year. And I hope to make them everybody proud, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, I would be remiss not to say S Squared, because S Squared is the one that tracked you down and did the heavy lifting. I just had to type in a few emails. So shout out to S Squared. And the pleasure is always all ours. So we thank Khalilah Smith for joining us and sharing her story with us. And we want to remind our audience that the DIBK Drip Shop is open. Go to dibkdripshop.com to cop the latest Dripping in Black merch, including the original Dripping in Black t-shirt that you see that I'm donning for today's episode. All right. As always, a huge thanks to all of our listeners, viewers, and supporters and subscribers. And until next time, be kind, be loving, and be excellent on purpose. It is a choice.
We end 2022 with a Creator's Drip episode with David V. Lewis and Sean Smith. Tune in as they give us a sneak peek into what we're dropping in 2023. You have just experienced a Dripping in Black production.